She was just a child, sold to a convent, trapped in a world of hunger, punishment, and secrets no one dared speak. This is what being a nun in the Middle Ages really meant. She was born in 14th century England in a house that smelled of sweat, beer, and boiled cabbage. Her father drank more ale than he kept food in the pantry. Her mother worked her hands raw, trying to keep the children alive on prayers and scraps. By the time the girl could walk, she already understood one thing: children cost money, and her family had none to spare. At 5, she scrubbed floors. At 7, she stirred the cauldron while her mother muttered prayers that the porridge would stretch one more night. At 8, her eldest sister left with a dowry so small the groom joked he must have angered God. Her father cursed the marriage for days. By 9, she had stopped expecting childhood to feel like anything at all. Her father began drinking more openly, muttering that daughters were curses disguised as babies. He took his brothers to the forest for archery lessons, boasting about his days on the battlefield. When he returned, he patted her cheek and called her the pretty one. It earned her extra chores and a new set of rules. Don't go outside alone. Don't speak to men. She added them to her already long list. By 12, she was eye-catching enough that her father had given her a new name. The death of suitors lined up at the door, some of them his age, hoping to take her hand. Her father would have loved one less mouth to feed, but the suitors wanted marriage as a lever to pry a significant dowry from him. He laughed, cursed them out, and sent them away. They never stayed gone long. Then one day, word came that the local convent was accepting new nuns. The church visited and reminded her father that the convent welcomed girls as gifts to God, especially pious and pretty ones. Within a week, his choice was made. The church promised enough support to get through the winter, enough that he asked whether they needed more girls. He signed her name on a parchment she never saw. The day they came for her, they sheared her hair in front of a crowd. Her locks fell to the dirt like pieces of her life separating from her body. Women murmured blessings, men smirked. Her mother cried silently at the edge of the crowd. The convent looked peaceful from the outside. White stone, a tidy courtyard, smoke curling from the kitchen chimney. They handed her a habit and closed the doors behind her. The sound was like a jail gate settling into place. Her first morning began with a bell at 4 in the morning. A novice kicked her pallet and whispered a single warning. If she was late, she would kneel on salt. She learned quickly who ruled here. The abbess was a woman carved from frost in scripture, who believed obedience grew only where comfort died. That same day, she scrubbed floors until her fingers bled, cold stones pulling the heat from her bones. Meals were bowls of thin gruel, always cold, always too little. Across the courtyard, priests and seminarians ate warm bread, salted meat, and winter pears. One passed her, blessed her labor without lifting a hand to help, and called it sacrifice. She called it hunger. The elder nuns enforced silence with zeal. One pulled her ear until it tore because she breathed too loudly during prayer. Another confiscated a crust of bread a kitchen girl had quietly handed her and called it gluttony, even as her own robes bulged with stolen comforts. The hierarchy became clear fast. The abbess at the top, elder nuns below her, novices beneath them, and the girl beneath even those. A charity offering from a drunken father, marked as trouble simply for arriving unwanted. Her days blurred into ritualized exhaustion, kneeling until her knees bruised purple, fasting until she saw stars, scrubbing footprints she didn't leave, confessing sins she didn't commit. One night, lying on straw that smelled of mold, she whispered a question she didn't dare speak aloud. Was this God's will, or just human cruelty dressed in holy robes? She was 15 when a decree arrived from Rome. The abbess gathered everyone in the refectory to read the Pope's ruling aloud. Strict enclosure. Nuns were to be sealed from the world to preserve purity and protect the brides of Christ. No leaving the convent, no contact with the outside world, no family, no windows that opened fully, no wandering the orchard without permission. The older nuns bowed their heads. The younger ones looked like candles being snuffed out. Whispers began moving through the convent shortly after. Other convents across Europe were rebelling. A nun in York named Joan of Leeds had faked her own death, constructed a dummy of her body, and fled to a man she loved. Another escaped wearing her lover's cloak. Another stripped off her habit at the gate and vanished into the night. These stories spread like illicit scripture among the novices. It was then that she met Sister Eleanor, barely older than herself, teeth always clenched as though holding back tears. Eleanor confessed that her family had lied. Her calling had been forged by her brother to avoid splitting the inheritance. She wanted out, not for lust or sin, just for air. She promised to help her. The next night, she distracted the porter while Eleanor slipped out wearing a laywoman's gown smuggled from the laundry. She prayed Eleanor would make it farther than the ones who had been caught. She did. The following morning, the abbess called her forward. They always knew. She was accused of aiding sin, corrupting holiness, and endangering souls. Her punishment was public, fasting, whipping, and kneeling on cold stone until her legs shook. As the rod struck her back, she asked herself a question, not whether helping Eleanor had been worth it. She would do that again without hesitation. The question was whether staying for her father's sake had been worth anything at all.
Then the abbess placed a wooden scourge in her trembling hands and ordered her to finish the punishment herself. "Strike until the sin leaves you," she commanded. The girl tried once, then twice. The sisters surrounding her chanted louder, and soon the blows landed without rhythm, without breath, without mercy. The leather cut her shoulders, then her arms, then her thighs. Warm blood bloomed through her habit and stuck cloth to skin. She collapsed twice. Both times they hauled her upright. A penitent must stand. When she fell the final time, she no longer felt pain, just a ringing emptiness, and inside that hollow space, a truth broke through. None of this was God. These were men's rules, men's punishments, men's invented sin. Her body was merely the altar on which they proved their authority. Then a priest arrived, robes rustling like a judge entering a courtroom. She expected him to increase her penance. Instead, he knelt, lifted her chin gently, and murmured that he would intercede on her behalf. He pulled the abbess aside. She could not hear what was said, but the abbess stomped away afterward, and the priest turned and smiled, telling her only that everything had been settled. She was carried to the infirmary. Fever, torn skin, and bruised ribs kept her there for weeks. When she could finally walk again, a message came. The priest wanted to see her. She went to his quarters in the rectory to thank him. But when she stepped inside and he moved toward her, the feeling that settled in her chest was not gratitude, it was dread. She murmured an apology and moved toward the door. He pinned her to the wall and told her he wanted more. His mercy had come with a price. She resisted at first, hands stiff, head down. But he reminded her of her scars, so she froze, and then she obeyed. She told herself it would end. A sharp jolt of pain made her cry out, and she counted every second until it did. When he finished, she wanted to curse him. His glare silenced her. She whimpered that what he had done was against the church. He said, with complete conviction, "I am the church." He assigned her to himself for counsel. The longer he kept her under his so-called guidance, the more clearly she saw the convent's true anatomy. Not a house of God, but a machine running on fear, money, and secrecy. The abbess, who preached piety each morning, negotiated land agreements in the afternoons, manipulated donations, leveraged noble families, and hid debts behind layers of ritual. The cloister, that demanded strict enclosure, opened its gates wide whenever wealthy nobles arrived, bringing servants, feasts, and gossip. The abbess bowed and smiled through it all. It was during these visits, carrying wine, cleaning after banquets, and listening from corners, that the girl pieced together the full picture. Many around her had suffered the same, even some elder nuns. Her suffering at the priest's hands had become a secret everyone agreed not to acknowledge. The abbess resented her for the disruption she represented. The priest insisted her silence proved devotion. The other nuns avoided her eyes, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. They all understood what happened to girls who drew the wrong kind of notice in a place where sin was whatever powerful men decided it to be. Then, one morning, a faint sickness set in. Weakness and hunger had ruled her body for years, so at first it felt like nothing new. But when her belly began to swell, her breath caught. She knew immediately whose shadow hung over her, and she knew the convent would never believe the truth. Whispers spread before she fully understood them. Novices stared. Older nuns crossed themselves. The abbess summoned her with a look that could flay flesh from bone. "A child," she said, circling her slowly. "Proof of your corruption." She tried to speak, to plead her innocence. The abbess silenced her. Behind her, beneath the crucifix, stood the priest. His expression was smooth, holy, untouched. He raised a hand toward the gathering. "She invites temptation," he said. That was all it took. The narrative was sealed. The following Sunday, they dragged her before the villagers assembled for Mass. Bells tolled as though announcing an execution. They forced her to kneel on the stone steps, belly heavy, knees burning. The priest demanded her confession. She denied wrongdoing. He demanded it again and again and again. At last, with the crowd watching, she broke. Not because she was lying, but because truth had no currency here. She repeated the sins they fed her: lust, pride, sorcery, disobedience. Gasps rippled through the congregation like applause. The sentence was banishment and excommunication. She went home because she had nowhere else to go. Her father slammed the door in her face. "You shame us," he slurred. "You earned this." With nothing but disgrace clinging to her skin, she walked to the outskirts of the village, the only place that didn't care whether she stayed. A scatter of shacks, broken carts, and people society had discarded like rotten gruel. Months later, she gave birth alone in a drafty hut made of stolen boards and mud. She screamed into straw as contractions hit her like stones, keeping her voice low so the village wouldn't hear. There was no midwife, no sister, no mother. Just her and the palate and the sharp memory of medical lessons forced into her at the convent, lessons meant for tending the sick, not for bringing life into the world. When her baby finally slipped into her trembling hands, purple and slick, she pressed him to her chest and whispered the only blessing she still believed in: live, even if the world hates you. She raised her son in that hut. Every day was survival. She stole scraps, gathered herbs, bartered labor for stale bread. He grew fast, always hungry, always curious, always watching the world that rejected him. She taught him everything she knew: how to boil water before drinking, how to mend torn skin, how to run when men grew cruel. She was 27 when the whispers started, the plague. First in the cities, then the villages, then crawling along the roads like something patient and inevitable. Farmers barred their doors. Monks fled their posts. Dogs starved beside dead masters. The world collapsed in weeks. She tried to shield her son, rationing food, boiling herbs, reciting old prayers she no longer believed in. But the fever found her anyway. Her joints swelled, her skin darkened, her breath wheezed. She had tended to the dying before and recognized every sign. She told him to leave, not to come near. He never listened. One morning, she saw a small black swelling blooming on his neck. Her heart broke in two. She held him close anyway, even as illness aided her lungs, and whispered her last prayer into his hair: live. Then, one morning, her lungs simply stopped. She died quietly. No miracle, no candlelit vigil. By nightfall, the plague cart came. The collectors did not ask her name. They did not note that she had once belonged to a convent, or that her life had been chewed apart by vows she never chose. They lifted her by her wrists and ankles and tossed her onto bodies already buzzing with flies. Her head struck a stranger's ribs. No one noticed. The cart rattled through the village that had exiled her, past doors that had never opened for her, and came to rest at the edge of a mass pit. There they dumped her without a shroud, without a prayer, without a marker. Centuries passed. Her name dissolved. Her story thinned to nothing. In the archives, monks copied hymns praising holy maidens and obedient nuns and radiant virgins. Historians celebrated abbesses who managed estates, anchoresses who chose their walls, mystics whose visions became literature. Not her, never her. Her agony lived only in the silences, in the gaps between monastery records, in the unspoken truth behind enclosure laws, in screams that were never recorded. In the end, her life became what the church had always preferred women to be: absent. And her son? We will never know.